Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Business That Matters Spotlight. My name is Warren Coughlin. The ways in which people make the world a better place are varied and fascinating. It's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast. And today we're chatting with someone who does so in multiple ways. By becoming a B Corp, there's a process that creates deep levels of personal responsibility that a business has to, commit to and maintain. And also by just committing to human needs in the built environment, the essence of this business is to make the daily experiences of individuals and environments just more fulfilling and more kind of coherent within who we are as human beings. So I think this can be a really fascinating conversation. So I'd like you to welcome Mani, founder of Fishtnk and Align, two businesses that are related that do some pretty cool stuff in the built environment. So Mani, welcome to the spotlight.
Thank you very much, Warren. This is it's amazing to be part of your show, and it's great. It's a fantastic opportunity to connect.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Now, listen, I always start these episodes because not everybody can listen to an entire podcast, but I always like people to get value out of their listening and attention. If you could give somebody one tip, another entrepreneur, somebody who wants to make the world a bit of a better place while they're running their business and running it successfully, what might you share with them?
That for me would be surround yourself with good people. I think a big part of what we do is, as much as entrepreneurship is seen as a one-man show a lot of times, and sometimes as entrepreneurs we feel that there's a lot of pressure on our shoulders, knowing that it's a community affair. It is something that we have to rely on our friends, our connections, our colleagues, professionals. Just knowing that you have good people around will make it a lot easier, and it's not that difficult to know sometimes when you're working with people that you're not compatible with. So That would be my tip.
And can you just dive a little deeper into that? What constitutes good people? Like that's a broad term. Be nice people, competent people. Is it values aligned people? Is it like how do you define for yourself what good people to surround yourself looks like?
That's a very good point, because there's an element of subjective approach to it, and you are absolutely right. I don't think nice people will be good. I think nice people are not necessarily the right fit sometimes, because we do need to hear that harsh criticism sometimes, or we do need to connect with people that may not 100% agree with our perspectives, but they're good people with good intentions, people that would like to provide you with some angles and some perspectives that you become a better entrepreneur, you become a better practitioner, you become a better business person in general. Like that would be my barometer when it comes to what I would define as good. Being nice, sure, it's great, but it can also be counterproductive.
I think there's a distinction between nice and kind, right?
There is a distinction between nice and kind. Yes, you're absolutely.
There's an acronym that I've used before about nice. That nice stands for nothing inside me cares enough. Which is that sometimes when you're nice, like it's actually more about you wanting to be perceived as nice than it is about kindness. Is actually saying, listen, even if you don't like me, I'm going to tell you the truth because I think it's in your best interest.
That is a very good way of putting it. Perhaps if I had to rephrase what I just said, would be to avoid counterproductive partnerships. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, is that maybe surrounding yourself with good people may not be the right way, but avoiding where you need to avoid certain projects, certain tasks, certain partnerships. Those are big setbacks that if you can detect them fast enough, you will be at a much better place, I find, both psychologically and just generally like business. It is not worth the friction. Good business is smooth. Good business is not full of frictions and tensions, and it flows much better.
Right. Now that does actually say something interesting about you too, though, because when you said you want not everybody, I think it's a good additional recommendation for owners, is that some people want their egos stroked. Some people don't want someone to tell them the truth. Some people kind of are uncomfortable with the uncomfortable truth. But it sounds like you're actually someone who appreciates some candor to make things better.
I perform better that way, and different individuals, as you probably know better than me, because I think you interact with a lot more business-minded individuals than I do. there are different personalities in the work that we do, and everyone finds their optimal performance in a certain area.
Right.
I find that being a bit more open and listening to the other side, and um, sometimes knowing that criticism is called for. It is the right time for criticism.
Right.
It goes a long way, and for us, it has been a 5-year cycle, like every 5 years. And again, we've been doing it for like between 13 and 15 years. So we are going through the third round of just deep diving into looking at things that we would like to change and things that I don't want to say criticism, but generally like realize that those approaches were not ideal. Like we would like to refine them a bit, give them a more positive spin or move them in a different direction.
Cool. Now, imagine some people now are listening, like, sounds like an interesting guy. What the heck does he do? Talks about built environments and B Corps and all that kind of stuff. So you got two businesses there, Fishtnk and Align. So what is it you actually do, and who do you do it for?
So we do the business for essentially, like I'm an architect by trade, but I have been more involved in delivery of the built environment since I started Fishtnk. And Fishtnk as a company, in the beginning, it was an extension of myself. It was me offering my services and my expertise to fellow architects and fellow contractors that needed support. So I always describe Fishtnk as we are a company, and we were a company, maybe I should say, that we would fill the gap between an architect's dream and the contractor's area, like an area that a contractor does not want to do that work. So we would come in and we would translate that information, which is high design or something that would be out of ordinary for production purposes, and translate that into something that could be built or could be piecemealed for a more standard trade approach to production. And we became a specialist for delivering those complicated projects through Fishtnk. And my intention always was to grow the business towards products, which means how do you provide a product if you are a service-based company? So in what we do in the built environment, there are different components in architecture. There are different components in a building, and certain parts of it can be manufactured and provided as either a kit of parts or a series of objects, and essentially, for lack of a better word, products that people can purchase. So we launch different products. Not all of them have a very long life, and all fall under the umbrella of Fishtnk. One of our most successful products, and the one that we have been focusing on since 2018, has been Align, architectural lighting and acoustics. So now a big part of our resources, our designers, our interior designers, architects, industrial designers, everyone is focused in developing products and manufacturing products that are specific to lighting, specification grade lighting, and interior acoustics. So that's basically what we do. And my job is to make sure that we are growing in those sectors. We are offering innovation. We are listening to the market to know what the demands are, which trends we may need to be aware of, and what are the gaps in what other manufacturers are that are supplying that we can fill. That's what we do.
Now,
Does that describe it?
Can you let's get a little more specific, because listening to that, someone could say, "Oh, acoustics." That could be like acoustic tiling, or things that are on the walls, and lighting. Does that include lamps and stuff like so? When you say products for acoustics, what are they? Like, what kind of things are you talking about?
So we find success in a commercial scale and in the institutional scale. And the reason for that being, we are at a scale and a level that we are able to produce highly detailed products with a specific requirement for performance that typically comes handy when you are dealing with projects that are universities. They are headquarters for large multinationals. So that is the area that we have products that are successful. And when it comes to lighting, imagine a lighting environment, or the professional lighting that you may experience when you visit a bank or when you are at a university. Meeting room acoustics, interior acoustics for conference rooms, sometimes like performance halls and environments that are a bit more performative. But for us, a big part of it is how can we provide um, a kit of parts or elements and components that interior designers and architects can specify and design more comfortable spaces.
Mhm.
Job of a designer is to, create more comfortable spaces, more desirable spaces, places that we would like to go back to work in. As we live in a post-pandemic era, and offices have a very different nature to them than perhaps like 3, 4, 5 years ago. Um, we provide products that interior designers can update those environments to something that is a bit more contemporary and of our time.
And what's an example of a product like a ceiling? Like just
Hmm.
describe one so that
So
someone can say, well, that now I get it.
that would be absolutely. It's a great question, and sometimes we are in such a visual industry that I sometimes forget that words can go a long way. And it's funny because I listen to podcasts like nonstop, and I have been listening to like and your show for a bit just to wrap my head around things that can have a bit more of a description when it comes to words. But just to describe it, imagine you're in a meeting room and you are sitting under a ceiling system that controls the acoustics and the echo in the room or a reverberation to a point that you have no problems hearing the person that is talking through the speakers in the TV screen for a virtual meeting. Or if you're having a meeting with 12, 15 people sitting around the desk and around the table, you're having a conversation. There is a lighting requirement, there is an acoustic environment, and sometimes there are wall panels, sometimes there are suspended structures that are hanging from the ceiling. And the way that that works is um, we work with natural materials to create environments that are um, friendlier, and they have a certain wellness to them, I would say. And that's a technical term. Like well standard is a way of measuring the performance of an interior space. Uh, and that would mean that the acoustics are designed in a way that they control that echo. They reduce it with natural felt material that we use. There are some wooden elements that are the design features. There are light fixtures that are integrated into that ceiling that they feel seamless, but they perform perfectly. Sometimes we talk about it like how we describe food. Like we have this saying in the office is that we're designing these products to provide that umami of space, that deliciousness of flavor and taste, the umami. It's like, how can the space, if we can describe taste that way, that it's not too sweet, it's not too salty, it's not too savory, it's just that perfect mix. And you want to be in a space that makes you feel that way, that Goldilocks zone of the space, that it's just comfortable enough. And so we produce these ceiling systems that visually they're appealing. They are very modern. They're very clean. They are contemporary, and they're manufactured with material that have been carefully selected and carefully sourced with credentials and with obviously an intention that kind of fits us in what really matters in a good business, and the B Corp being a part of that, and for us to pursue that. So we design these systems that look good, they perform well, and they allow the designers to take the lead in adjusting and fine tuning the aesthetics as well as the performance to find that perfect umami of space, or that comfort for the occupants of that meeting room.
And
So
the reason it's important, if I heard you right, part of it is that in without this kind of feature in a room, you get that, as I'm sure everybody listening has had that experience, where either somebody puts up the AV system and somebody's a talking head through a Zoom and it echoes all over the place. You can't make out what they're saying. Um, and it's that
absolutely.
people don't actually understand why. Often I've been in these environments where it's like, what's wrong with that TV? What's wrong with the speaker? And it's not, in fact, the speaker. It's the fact that the configuration of the room creates all these echoes and reverberations that your ears have a hard time discerning the individual sounds. Is that about right?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right about that. And it's one of those things that you don't notice it until it's done wrong. Like you don't notice good acoustics until you're in a room that, as you said, you're trying to communicate with someone across the screen, and all you hear is just the echo and the reverberation of that space. So it is exactly the elements that you were talking about. It has a purpose. It works with our psyche. And one of the things about the definition of comfort in general for like us as you know, humans, and our physical understanding of comfort, is the balance between these senses. It is the balance between our auditory senses and our visual senses, that you are not put in a situation that is too loud or it's too quiet. It's not too dark. It's not too dim. Aside from the office as the example of restaurants, like I'm sure like a lot of your listeners have been in a restaurant that you are trying to have a conversation, or you're trying to connect with a group of friends, and just the acoustics of the space, the architecture of the space does not allow for that sense of intimacy, that sense of comfort that is required for experience your meal or your social event
And I'm sure
appropriately.
there must be things around productivity around this. Like I know it's a very interesting thing in terms of people's psychology. They don't even know what stressors are impacting them at a time. And just having that struggle to hear, or having a cacophony of sounds around you that are disruptive or loud or echoey, actually creates a stress response in the body, right? And it's harder for you to concentrate or think or just be calm in the exercise of work that you're doing at the time.
You are so right about this, and it's funny that we're talking about this because um, I was reading this report from WHO and the World Health Organization. They're looking at the performance um, of health clinicians, and essentially like, you know, nurses, a lot of times like registered nurses and more technical staff that support hospitals. The mistakes made based on the noise levels and the requirements in the spaces. So ICU is a very noisy environment. The stressors that you're talking about, the stress that an individual, let's say like, you know, even a registered nurse or a professional individual that has to care for the patients in that environment, the mistakes go up the moment that you start, you know, looking at the parameters of the decibels that the machines are producing. So those are parameters that everyone is looking into from the healthcare, which has a direct impact on an individual's you know, livelihood or life, all the way to an office environment that we may forget that you're not having a pleasant conversation with your coworker about a simple thing. It's like, did you submit that email? Did you submit that application or not? We forget that sometimes the discomfort that we have is about that. You know, we notice it very quickly if a space is, let's say, too cold. You know, like if you're somewhere that you're just a little bit too cold, you feel uncomfortable. It's a bit more
Right.
physical. But sound has the same thing. Lighting too, but sound, I think, is the one that is so invisible that we forget it is
People
a.
don't notice it as much. We were talking before, right? Like on video, a lot of people think problems with video are video, but usually when people have a problem with a video, it's the sound quality. It's the sound quality that bugs people when they can't get what's coming out of a video. That was a crappy video. It wasn't crappy
Yeah,
video. It was crappy sound.
you're absolutely right. Or just good radio production. It's amazing what you can do with a good radio production, or even a podcast. Like there are
Yeah.
podcasts I'm sure we all listen to that kind of take you in a very different environment, and puts you in a different space just with sound. At the same time, the content sometimes is fantastic, but if the delivery is not right in the audio format, then you don't have any interest. Like after 5 minutes, like I'll be like, I don't have any interest in listening to this.
Hopefully that's not this.
I don't think so.
Now, one of the things, like, just so that people don't, I want to geek out a little bit, and I
Mm.
give advance warning to the listeners. This is going to be a little bit of a nerdy section, but I think it's really important because, like, what it's really easy for someone to say, particularly if you go to Align's website, it's AALINE, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. It's
If
spelling
you
is
go there, you'll see like really beautiful design. And it's going to be really easy for somebody to say, oh, this is just one aesthetic versus another aesthetic, and you put some felt up and it dampens the sound. But can you geek out a little bit? Like you actually do metrics and measurements, and there's science behind the speed of sound and its reverberation and that kind of thing that makes this not just an aesthetic design, but you've got some science behind your design, right?
absolutely. And I'm very grateful for my education, like being an architect. Like you are in the space between the engineering and sciences that are pure data and pure numbers, and also art and more expressive ways of connecting with the world around us. So for us, we have been able to find that sweet spot between the two. We are not engineers, but we are knowledgeable enough to be able to look at the parameters that allow us to quantify the performance of sound in a space. And the way that we've been approaching it is we design our own tools. These are creative tools that rely on engineering data, and we are able to analyze a room, let's say a meeting room that we talked about. We're able to go in that room and measure the reverberation time of that space and work with it as a parameter or as a number. Let's say, like, a bat office would have a reverberation time of 2.3 seconds. And the way that, dive into the numbers, like one method of measuring it is if you go in the middle of that room and you pop a balloon, let's say the balloon would have an 80 decibel sound burst. And you measure how long it takes for that sound to decay and go from 80 decibels to 20 decibels. So the 60 decibel loss that you have, you measure the amount of time that it requires for that decay to happen. And that becomes your RT60, or reverberation time over 60 decibels. So bad office would be about 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds. You're going to have a hard time. Your brain is processing information 3 or 4 times because it's bouncing off of that beautiful glass wall, that fantastic, granite countertop, and the perfectly polished, like, concrete floor, and back into your ear like 3 or 4 times. So optimal clarity would be 0.6 to 0.8 seconds. And we work with these numbers, like we go pop that balloon, and we get the numbers, then we start, like, using our software for analyzing what if we have our system like hanging at 40 inches above the table, what if we have it at 35 inches, and then you run the simulation again and again until you fine tune it and say, oh, we're going to need the panel behind the TV is not at the perfect spot, this wall needs to be a little bit angled. So we're able to refine it, and the way that we quantify and use parametric information for anything from the human health to even lighting design, like lumens and outputs and kelvins and everything else. Acoustics has the same thing. Acoustics do have parameters that we can quantify. It is not something that everyone gets involved with. I think, like, you are one of the few that does pay attention to it, and I'm happy that we're having this conversation. But it's that invisible part of architecture. It's the hidden component that we have come up with some parameters, and the tools that we have designed is to allow us to design better pieces and make sure that the aesthetics of it are taken care of as well. Part of the aesthetic is subjective. The other part of it is simpler than that, like relying on good materials. Like, everyone understands a good material. Like, it's rare that you touch a door handle that is machined out of a beautiful piece of brass and you don't realize that, oh, there is good quality in here, versus an injection molded, like, plastic with maybe some spray can on it. So, there's certain things that we don't have to try hard. Choosing the right materials, choosing the right things, that tactility, that tactile experience is innate in us. And we take pride in being able to bring all of those elements together and know where they matter, and know where they can make a positive impact and where we can use alternatives.
Now, yeah, it's actually interesting. I do, you and I were talking before, I do presentation training, and one of the things I actually train people in when they're doing presentations is to be conscious of the environment. I've trained people that were giving presentations in, like, big atriums that are really tall, but all glass and concrete in odd shapes. And I always say, like, you're going to have to slow down and speak louder, and, but take your time, because there's going to be so much echoing going on that people won't pick you up if you go fast. And alternatively, if it's in a carpeted, cushioned environment with carpets where everybody's going to have lots of coats and they're on cushioned chairs, and it's like, you're going to have to push a little bit in here because this environment is going to take away your energy. And not enough people actually pay attention to that. And I think the fact that, like, what you do, I would imagine creates these really subconscious emotional and psychological benefits from people of just creating this sense of comfort where they are without them even knowing why.
You are absolutely right, and that is an important factor. What we do is we design these pieces to be universal enough that most designers can take advantage of it. And they can include, if you're designing, let's say, a headquarters for an office somewhere, if you are working on a coffee shop project, if you're designing a restaurant, you don't necessarily have to design everything from ground up. we have the ingredients. The system has been engineered. The designer can look at what we offer and say, oh, that would be nice if this was a circular kind of like, profile rather than a straight element. And then what if we kind of look at the green tones that they offer rather than the blue tones that is there? So those elements are always adjustable, and we make them available for people, for designers to be able to use it. And what you say about the room is so interesting, because there's a slideshow that I use. Like there's a slideshow for when we're discussing some detail designers and other individuals, and I have two pictures that I put. One is a picture of this highly modern building with glass walls everywhere, beautiful ceramic tiles, as I was explaining. And I ask people, what do you think this room sounds like? Everyone can hear the discomfort in that space. And immediately right after, I show one of the corners from Ace Hotel, but by Shimon Sutcliffe in downtown Toronto. It's a relatively new building. If you haven't been, like, it's worth the experience. Just good architecture, what good interior can do and can be. And I ask people, what do you think this one sounds like? Although we don't have any products in either of these two spaces, but it's very immediate that people looking at the space, they can feel like, oh, I feel comfortable in this environment. I can have a conversation. Going back to your presentations and the coaching that you do, like if you're coaching someone to talk to a group that everyone is at ease and comfortable, you can have a much easier engagement with them. You can kind of get into a different level of a presentation, leave an impact, leave an emotional impact, rather than, hey, here's just like a word salad of stuff that can happen in the background. So the environment matters, the emotions that come with the space and the sound and the light and all of those things will help your audience, like your clients, to communicate better. And we shouldn't forget, like, a good space is a tool for delivery of a certain message as well. Like it's a platform, it's an environment for a different level of engagement.
Right. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. You're a B Corp,
Yes.
which, that's not always the norm in your space. And so, like, what was the motivation for doing it, and was it difficult to achieve, and how has it helped you? So there's three questions.
Yeah. So was it easy? No, it was not easy. It was it's relatively easy for a company like us. We are a nimble company. We're very lean. We are sustainable to the core. Like, it was not a big jump for us that all of a sudden, like, we were working with some hazardous chemicals and all of a sudden we had to shift and start like using different chemicals or different materials. It was not a difficult one for us in that sense, but it is involved. Like, you still have to go through an exercise of reevaluating a lot of your operations. Like, you have to, which I think it's a very healthy exercise for any business owner to do. Even if you don't want to get these certifications, just looking at how these metrics work from outside. What is the norm? What is the standard? Like, if, for example, they're comparing their operation to another B Corp organization, just look and see what are they doing to be at the level that they are. And it gives you a competitive advantage, even if you don't become a B Corp. So we decided to do it because we were more than halfway there. We were 75% there. We just had to make some fine adjustments to our workflow to become a perfectly compatible B Corp organization. And the reason for us doing it were two main reasons. One, to attract like-minded individuals. Going back to what I said about my what would be my advice to business owners in the beginning of the show, it allows us to attract the right-minded people. Like, we are very fortunate. We're very lucky to be operating in Toronto. We have access to a fantastic, talented group of individuals, and for us being B Corp, we have an easier time attracting talent, and we have an easier time keeping them, because I always wanted to be a business owner that pays above living wage. I always wanted to be a business owner that we have certain flexibilities in our operation, that people can have a balanced lifestyle, and encourage people to continue with their personal interests and what they value in their own lives. So there was an internal purpose for that it just aligned us. Now, it put everyone in a trajectory and in a direction that we connect with one another better. We have shared values. when we're making a decision about, are we going to start production with this type of material or that type of material, it's much easier. The decision making has been easier, and we don't we have a bit of it's a better spine, I would say, for us. And the second part is all these efforts that, please.
I just want to interrupt and come back because you said something really interesting that I want to pick up on, which is, you said you as an entrepreneur, you always wanted to have a job that paid a living wage or above living wage and to provide meaningful work. Like you sort of toss that out as a given, but that isn't always a given for people. Like where does that come from? Like where does that desire to? Yeah, I've got a few clients who I really love who have this philosophy. I've got two clients who say one of their actual strategic objectives is to have everybody who works for them own a home.
Yes.
That's which is really cool.
Very cool. Very respectful. Like those are the type of mindset, going back to what is a good person to be surrounded by, that is the type of person you should have around you, and not the person that does their calculations based on minimum wage. So why? There are two parts. One is very personal. Like, as humans, we have certain expectations about who we are and who we would like to be. For some, it may be the limelight, and for some, maybe like the attention. For others, maybe just word a little bit better than how we found it. And I think I belong to the second category, the second group.
And is that somewhere though? Was that parental? Was it something you experienced along the way?
It must be. I question it. I actually question it, because it must be parental. Like I'm lucky to be born in a family that is very like-minded to me, and I am an extension of them. But now that I have a 3-year-old, and I have to kind of sometimes I do think like, is he going to be a decent human being, or do I have to worry about him being a little bit on the other side? But obviously, like, it's his choice, and life is for everyone to experience it the way that they see it. You just hope that you leave the right elements available. It could be that. It could be biology. It could be. It could also be good business. And my analysis, like the way that I look at it, is that I truly believe that doing it this way is better business. Because I have an easier time hiring people compared to my competition. I have an easier time retaining, kind of keeping people. Like our turnover rate is really low. We are also able to plan a little bit longer. Like, it's one thing that you calculate based on minimum wage about your profit margins and just your cash flow. It's another thing to know that, no, you need to operate in a very different level. So I argue that a business that matters, or a better business, is a business that keeps those components, and business of the future, I should say, like business that can survive and be sustainable, not green sustainability. A business that is healthy enough that can sustain itself throughout the next few generations, or at least like one more generation, will require that. Will require to operate with a sense of care for our surroundings and for who we are, and automatically you attract the right clients. Again, it seems that it's a circle back to what I said in the beginning. We attract the right client. Like, right now we offer impact assessment certificates for our clients, and a few Fortune 500 clients that we have worked with, they appreciate and they like it. They come to us because the stakeholders of those organizations have ESG mandates. They do need to go to their superiors, or as part of their operations, they do need to show that they are taking the right steps beyond just we met the deadline and we met the budget. Is that also, no, we are reducing our impact. Like, as an example, like each product on our website, it does have a breakdown of what percentage of the impact, which is the embodied carbon in our industry, compared to others. And typically we're about 75% under competition. We're 25% emissions, or carbon dioxide equivalents production of our systems produce a carbon dioxide compared to our competition and imported products. So it is good business for us. That is the market that we're attracted in, but that is not sufficient. You also need to have a good product. You need to have a good customer service. You need to be able to deliver, and you need to be up to standards. So
Now there's
yeah.
going to be some. I can imagine there'll be some people listening to this, and I've had these conversations. So I love your take on this. You know, listening to this, I could hear somebody saying, "So you're using higher priced materials. You've got high. You know, you're paying above living wage. You're living in an expensive city. That sounds like a recipe for a business that's not going to be profitable." Um, how do how do you balance all those objectives with the mandate for a business to, you know, be profitable? Is it just through good process management, or what else?
Process management goes a long way. And those are the moments that if you put yourself in front of like some set parameters, then innovation kicks in, and that's the time that you start really innovating to meet the criteria and the requirements of like what you need to do to arrive at a product that can be profitable and it also can survive as a business. And
Mhm.
there are times that we launch a product and we know it's going to be financially challenging to keep that viable, and we discontinue them. We start to reimagine how that could be done. And not always we are the cheapest option, and it's very obvious. Like we are not the most affordable option in the market, but at the same time, we are not the most expensive. We are priced in a position that we are able to deliver our projects that larger organizations are attracted to, because they are competitive. Like one of our
Value.
clients, there is a value. There is a value,
Yeah.
and the right client knows that value. The value is in customer service. The value is that sure, you can buy a let's say like a light fixture for half of the price set of what we do and import it from Alibaba, AliExpress, doesn't matter. But if you are a company that has enough facilities, you have a maintenance schedule, you have maintenance requirements, how do you find that part if it fails? Things
Mhm.
that we can offer, it's, we're doing some very interesting projects. And as an example, we're doing a project for a university like in the States, and the requirements were quite specific. They wanted replaceable components, they want a 10-year warranty, and they wanted us to be available to provide product support for the next 10 years. And for a company like us with B Corp, it is our mandate. We are part of the right to repair movement. We are
Right.
part of like so you know what I mean? It's like very simple things that you don't think about. It's like, why should we commit to right to repair? You know, isn't it better business that the light bulbs burn and then you just sell them another light bulb? Absolutely, that worked for the 1900s, but that is not the sustainable business that we see ourselves survive. And if everybody else is doing it that way, isn't it a good business for us to be the only company that offers like, right to repair, and we're able to attract like large organizations that need that service? So those are innovations that people forget. Innovation is not about like, hey, I designed this, like, oh, you can't see my mouse, interesting. This mouse that I'm holding in my hand um, um, as a new innovative, like, design. Maybe what people need is, can you swap the battery? Can you kind of provide it with a red light instead of blue? Um, and those are the areas that I think you can make a profitable business and a sustainable long-term business.
And do you
Um,
find there's like an evangelism in the sale, like for something like that? There's one of the things always the difference between the cost of acquisition and then the cost of use. And so there's sort of a total cost over time, and then the cost of inconvenience, the cost of downtime, and all those kinds of things. So people who are just out there buying this stuff on an acquisition cost basis wouldn't be the ideal customers, but you probably have to do, I would imagine, a fair amount of education about total usage cost.
Completely. And we have less of that to worry about because we're not in like the business to consumer end of the market. We have some products that are suitable for that, and we still provide the same commercial level of care for that department, but it's not the biggest component of what we do. And with a business to business projects, then the process is a little bit different. It's a bit more professional. There are engineers involved. There's a specification requirement. There is a testing as part of it. It's a bit more formal, and you can control that part of the business a little bit better.
Right.
Sometimes, like, yeah, sure, it's very expensive for us to do those things, and it is offered to clients that are looking for that service.
Right. So let me just, so what's sort of next for Fishtnk or Align? Like where are you headed? You said earlier, every 5 years you do a little bit of a reboot, and you're in the
Yeah.
midst of doing stuff. So what are you struggling with right now?
For us, one of the interesting things that has happened for us, and we're not unique, like I'm kind of keeping an eye on all the research and the case studies that come out, and I'm very curious about it. Is you can start your business as a B Corp sustainable operation, and run it for a few years. You get the attention that you deserve. But then what? You know, you cannot be a one-trick pony that you rely your entire identity on, that just like, I'm green, we are sustainable, we are B Corp. Um, that's the challenge, is that how do you keep that element as core and as important as it is, but at the same time continue innovating, continue having exciting stories similar to sustainability, similar to B Corp, similar to social mandates, and other elements of contemporary, like 21st century businesses that have their own lingo and have other things. So for us, it has been that. How can we build a bit of a I don't want to say resilience, but generally, like, broaden our portfolio? How can we offer more and more? How can we do more on the ceiling? Because for us, the real estate in architecture for us is the ceiling. Like, we do very well with acoustics, we do very well with lighting, we do very well with, like, integration of speakers and microphones for the conference rooms and this and that. So for us, it's like, how can we do more of what we do and understand, like, the area that we can design for, we can deliver for, and not lose the interesting side of our identity as we define the next chapter of the personality for the company, I would say.
Nice. Now, listen, I always finish off with a few rapid fires. So quick answer, thing off the top of your head. What's one decision or action that most helped you get where you are?
Not to sell my company about 8 years ago.
That's interesting, because I've had that a few times where people have had the opportunity to sell, they didn't, and then they wind up achieving a higher level of success later. So that decision's a tough one. Was it tough to make that decision?
It was, because thanks to my business partner, we had a good chat, and the decision was that we don't have to. Like, it would not be that many, like, advantages in selling it, given, like, how young our company was and how young we were, and the future that we can build with it and continue with, still working with our client at the time, who wanted to kind of, like, buy us out, come up with a very strategic partnership package for, like, a number of years to get what they wanted, to kind of help them with what they wanted to achieve with our acquisition, and at the same time keep the company, at least, like, park it for a few years, and reinvent it and keep the foundations, keep the foundation that we had poured, and build a new frame on top of it. So yeah.
So what's one aspect of running a business that you have yet to master?
People. I would say I'm pretty good at it. I'm very good, but we are not large enough to have our HR department. We still deal with the human resources side of it, which is a very sensitive, and it's a very important part for me for many reasons, aside from my personal objectives of being a business owner, but also that it's a community. We are a company of people that we come together to produce something, and the knowledge, the traditions, the subtle nuances that make us who we are, they are the DNA of what we are. So it's important to respect, care, provide opportunities for growth, and yeah, the people part. You said short answers, I'm giving you long answers.
What's one personal quality that you most had to improve or overcome to succeed?
To say no to things.
Mm.
Yeah, to say no to projects.
You say yes to too much.
I used to say yes too much, and now I am much better. Like, Just it's one of the, I think it's not unique to me. Like when you're bootstrapping and starting a business, you have no other option because you're you do have your blinders on. You are focused with one vision. Like you got to reach your targets. You got to keep like the payroll going,
Yeah.
and you need to keep your staff busy. And it's difficult for me, even as a person who has come from that side, to advise like younger entrepreneurs and people that are doing it to say no sometimes, because I understand that no, I don't understand the complexities of like their operation and what they need to do. But I'm lucky that over time I learned when to say no and which opportunities are a yes opportunity and which ones should be a no.
And what's, no false humility, what's one personal quality that most contributed to your success?
Um, I think grit. Like I think one of the things that um, again, like this is based on Freakonomics, like that the podcast they had like a couple of episodes about grit, and every time I listened to it, I'm just like, oh, this is a very fascinating um, angle to think about like a personality and performance and the outcome. Because I have had classmates that were smarter than me. There were designers that were better than me. There were business owners that were more aggressive and more savvy than me. There were companies that had more financing and backing than me, but looking back, like the only thing that got us through was just, sheer determination and grit. Of course, other qualities need to support that. It's not just grit because you need more, but I have been very sensitive about the word grit these days, like for the past like 2 years, and I noticed that in myself.
Good for you. That's great. It's
Mhm.
funny. I think you're the first person who's actually answered that question with that word, even though it's like there's a book called Grit, and it
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah.
she actually
Angela Duckworth,
suggests
yeah.
yeah, it's Duckworth. She argues that it's one of the essential qualities of success. So cool. Now, where can people find you if they want to, find a really cool, either find out more about B Corp or find out about where they can get a really cool sound acoustically controlled system?
For sure. So we are listed on the B Corp organizations. Like if you go on their database, you can find us. Until last time I checked, we were the only lighting and acoustics manufacturer with B Corp certification. At
Wow.
the same time, our website, Fishtnk, and Fishtnk is without a, Fishtnk. That would be the mothership, and then Align, which is Aaline, is our a lighting and acoustics brand that is very focused on that part if anyone's interested. And personally, like I'm easy to find. My name is simple enough. It's Mani, first name and last name. So if anyone needs to find me that way, again, obviously, like through your podcast, they will be able to find the details. But aside from that, I'm easy to find, and more than happy to answer questions and help you guys if anyone out there would like to just have a conversation.
Nice. Thank you very much for your time. You've been generous, and I wish you continued success. I love the work you're doing. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation, Warren, and I much appreciate the dialogue. It's been great.